Welcome back to the channel. I made a video the other day about why I thought in some circumstances filling up with petrol is much easier than charging up your EV. But in some circumstances, charging up your EV can be much easier than almost anything. So I went to a Fastned station earlier with my EV and it went something like this. We're here at Fastnet because in the last video I explained how complicated it was charging an EV, and Fastnet have got auto charge. So this is how complicated it is to charge at Fastnet. You open your flap, and you plug it in. And it starts charging. And that's all you have to do. So Fastned can make it work. Why does everyone else have to be so complicated? It's not totally ideal because you have to have an account, but it's pretty good. And there we are, it's now charging. And I don't actually need to charge because I'm at 85% already. And this is all you have to do to stop. You press the button. And that's it. No cards, well, one button, and it can be simple. So as you can see, that was extremely easy. You just plug your car in, the charger talks to the car, it recognises the which car it's been plugged into, and because I've paired my car with my Fastnet account, it automatically charges. And what this does is it will bill me, at the end of the month, I'll get a bill from Fastnet of all the charges I've done, and they will bill me and I'll just pay whatever it is. If I don't charge in the month, I won't get a bill, and it just pay as you go. You can also get a subscription where you get 30% off charging, which is pretty good. If you've got Fastned in your area, it can be actually a pretty cheap way to fast charge. So that's all very good and it works fine, although the problem is that you have to be tech savvy enough to download the app and do the pairing and set up an account and all of that sort of stuff. So it doesn't have sort of the zero skill level that filling up with petrol does. And my last video seemed to upset absolutely everyone. And there seem to be sort of three camps of people. There are the people who are very pro EVs, and if you say anything even slightly negative about EVs, they jump all over you and they say that it's just all ridiculous and that owning an EV is perfect in every single way, and anything or anyone who says anything to the contrary is just an oil baron, basically. And then you have the normal people in the middle who quite like the idea of EVs but are unsure about a few little minor things about them, and that's the majority of people. It's probably 90% of people, maybe more than 90%. And then you get a very small minority of sort of stick in the muds who think that EVs are all going to control your mind and do all sorts of weird things, and you're going to have to change the battery every 3 years, and the government's going to control you, and blah 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 blah. And I'm in the middle camp. I actually am pretty pro EV. I've actually done 13,000 miles since January in an EV. In that Fiat, I've done a 1,200 mile road trip of Great Britain that went really, really well. I absolutely love driving an EV. I much prefer working on EVs. I think they're pretty much the only option going forwards. They really are, and they're so much better in so many ways, but they do have a problem with paying for charge. And that was what the point I was trying to make in the last video. And I really got gaslit by several people who are saying, well, that's ridiculous because, I've got loads of money in my bank account, so it's not a problem. Or, I use a credit card and that's not a problem. Look. The thing is that we're in a cost of living crisis and ordinary people are starting to buy EVs, and quite a lot of ordinary people and run up to, if they get paid £3,000 a month, at the end of the month they don't have £3,000 in their account, put it that way. They might only have, well, they might even be going into their overdraft and they might only have £100 left, and if they need to go somewhere, having £40 of electricity, of pre-authorization on their card to pay for electricity could be quite an inconvenience. So imagine this, I went from Durham to Kent the other day, and I had to stop 3 times on that return journey. Now imagine that it was £40 each time. That would be £120 of pre-authorization charges. Now the whole round trip of the UK didn't come to much more than that. So just having £120 of pre-authorization charges for some people would be quite a big hit. And what if the charger doesn't work? I went to a whatever they're called, grid serve charger the other day, and I plugged in and the car started charging first time and everything was fine, except it maxed out at 25 kilowatt. Now my car can charge at 85. So I tried it again. I unplugged it, plugged it back in. It's charged at 25 kilowatt. And then I moved it to the charger next door, and it charged straight up to 50 kilowatt. It was only a 50 kilowatt charger. So I had 3 lots of pre-authorization charges. I can't remember what the grid serve pre-authorization is, but say it was £40, that's £120 just out of my account. Now you do get that money back in the fullness of time, but it's not immediate. So I can show you, if you go through ZapMap, you can see people who've gone to chargers that are a little bit flaky, and people have run up hundreds of pounds of pre-authorization charges. And that might be the only money they have. And yes, it does go back into your account. I think it's 3 working days is the maximum it can take. But I remember once I went to Belgium years ago, I filled up with petrol, and I think I got £120 pre-authorization charge, which took like a month to go back into my account. And the money's technically doesn't ever leave your account, but it's ring-fenced by the bank. You can't spend it. So if they take £120, your available balance goes down by £120. And how did it used to work for pay at pump in this country? Well, how it used to work, at least at Tesco, was it would take £1, and then whatever you filled up with petrol, so you put in £9 as in my last video, then after 2 days it would take the remaining £8 from your account. And the problem is that if you had a card that couldn't go overdrawn, there were certain cards, Visa Electron, for example, used to be one of these cards, you couldn't go overdrawn. It wouldn't work at Pay at Pump, because Pay at Pump relied on you going overdrawn. And this caused problems for people. There was a story of people thinking it only cost £1 to fill up, and everyone filled up, and you know, I used it once when I had to get home and I had no money at all. I went and filled up, and I knew it would take me overdrawn. And you know, this was years ago, but it did happen, and it got me home. But it could also get you into severe financial problems, because it would take £1, and then perhaps you'd fill up with £90, and then 3 days later it would take £90 from your bank whether you had it or not. And if you didn't have it, you'd go into your unauthorised overdraft and get charged for that. So the system that they've got now is very sophisticated, because it allows you to fill up to £120, which will suffice for most cars. But if you don't spend that, you immediately get the money back. And you don't have that available, it would just go up to what you have available. So it's a really good system. But if you don't want to deal with that sort of system, you can go into the shop and pay for your petrol. And that isn't an option with an EV. At the moment, it seems to me that the best option is a charge card, like the Octopus Electroverse card, because you set up a credit agreement with them, essentially, and they have your details on file, which means they can track your data, and some people are not happy with that, and would like to pay by card or with cash to get around this. But they have your details, and when you charge, it will link that charge to your account, and they'll bill you at the end of the month or the end of the week, or however the charge card works. So that seems to be the best solution. I find it very satisfactory. If the charge network takes it, it works really well. And obviously the Fastned system is very similar. But I've come across in person, this is not me reading about it, people who've come in, who've never heard of a charge card. They've come from internal combustion, where they're used to paying by card. They've seen a charger where it takes card, and it's malfunctioned, or they're not sure how to use it, and they've kept pre-authorising it, and they've run up hundreds of pounds of pre-authorisation, and that's caused them problems. And I've gone, well, get an Octopus card, here's the link. and hopefully they'll be happy people. But you've got to understand that normal people are buying EVs. They're not hugely clued up on the technology. They just expect to plug it in and to be able to pay for it with their card. Someone in the comments said that they tried this at a charger. They tapped their card and it said you have to put your PIN in, but there was no PIN reader, so you had to go into a pub and buy something in the pub with chip and PIN to reactivate the card. So all sorts of pitfalls. The other way, of course, you used to be able to pay for charge was with an app. But you have to download an app or you have to go to a website, and that relies on signal. And often chargers, as I've experienced, are in areas where there's poor signal. Or perhaps you don't have a phone that works. Having a mobile phone should not be a requirement to driving an EV. There'll be I know plenty of people don't actually have smartphones, and they're not like anti-EV. If I said, oh, buy an EV, they'd go, oh yeah, I quite like that. They're not like, anti-technology. They just don't have a smartphone, and shouldn't be required to get a smartphone to pay for charging, although obviously that would be easier. So on my road trip, I had very few problems with charging. I did have a few little niggles. On Holy Island there was a charger and you could only pay online through a website and there wasn't any signal. So that was difficult to initiate the charge, but most of the time my charge went fine. I stopped at Gretna Green. I used the Apple Green Electric app. I'd set up an account, I'd given them all my personal details, and it worked first time. But loads of people there, almost everyone was struggling. There was some poor guy who went around about 5 chargers and must have tapped his card about 10 times because he tried every charger twice, and he looked very frustrated, and eventually to get his charge started. Obviously that was fine, but I didn't have a problem because I, the night before, had gone onto ZapMap, found the charge location, found the app, downloaded the app, filled in all the details, got the 2-factor authentication text message, registered it with my bank. All of that went the night before, so I was prepared and it worked fine for me. But I'm very tech savvy, and the fact is I'm making YouTube videos and editing them, and I work with cars and I like technology, and I'm happy to do all of these things, but this technology has to be accessible to normal people. So the reason I made that video is not to slate EVs, not to say they're particularly much better or worse, but that the charge network operators really must get their act together and make chargers accessible for everyone. If you've only got £20 on your card, you should be able to at least pre-authorise £20 or 10, and the charger just stop at £10 like the petrol pump does. Anyway, that's my rant over. I hope you can see that the future is probably going to be something like plug and charge. Filling up your EV is going to be really simple in the future. It is already for Tesla, so if Tesla can manage it, Fastnet can manage it, so can everyone else. And the fact is, I don't think they can be bothered. So like this video, do subscribe, watch my previous video, the link will be up in the corner, and thanks for watching.